Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
In episode 415, John Papaloni will discuss with us using podcasts to create content and build brand while generating leads.
Absolutely. Now, this is the thing I want to bring up, right? Like right now, it looks like I'm staring at everybody, which reality is my screen is actually below me. So I don't actually see you because I'm looking at my camera lens, which is what's giving that appearance that I'm looking at you. And that's a key component, right? Because when people, if I look down like this where I see you, then people are seeing the top of my forehead. And it kind of just seems like I'm not really focused or paying attention. When the reality is I'm looking at my screen. But it's not something people think about when they're watching. It just looks weird. So, but where I'm going with this is that, like you said, with personality. And that's the thing. People have to be able to connect with you. They want to see your authentic self. They want to see your true self. Like, be who you are. Don't try to be something you're not. Like the worst.
Talking with the Experts.
Hi, I'm Rose Davidson from Talking with the Experts. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Global Glamping Charities for their valued support. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org. Do you love your podcast and dislike the editing and uploading to the various platforms? Would you like to spend this time with your family and friends or work on your business? Podcast editing doesn't have to be a chore. Talking with the Experts partners with podcasters who need help with audio and content editing. If you'd like to know more, contact me, Rose Davidson, using the link showing now or send me a private message. Hello, I'm Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Welcome to Talking with the Experts. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. Now, I don't know if you know a lot about podcasting. I know I've been doing it for nearly 3 years now, and so I've learned quite a lot. But my next guest, John Papaloni, is going to help us to learn about podcasting and how it can help build your brand. John is a serial entrepreneur with experience in marketing, real estate, hospitality, and media. He's built multiple businesses that have generated over 8 figures a year. He takes pride in serving his clients and helping them to reach their goals. He is driven, focused, and customer service driven. Welcome, John, and thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show. I am very excited.
Terrific. I like people that are excited. Adds to my day. John, tell me, how did you get into doing what you are doing and, building 8 figures a year?
Well, this is the thing, right? I've been in the marketing business for a very long time. My original business I had sold in 2007. I had taken time off from working when my parents got sick. So I took about, I would say, a good 3 years off. And then I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. So I kind of decided to go into real estate at the time because my parents were landlords and I've been around it my whole life. So I got used to that. So I was going to open houses and I thought, you know what? I'm going to open houses and looking at things for free. Why don't I do something and get my real estate license where I can actually get paid to be there? Maybe that would be a little bit better, right? So that's kind of where I got my real estate license. And then, naturally, I'm selling homes and stuff. And then part of real estate is about personal branding. And this is where my new idea came up with the whole media business is that I had hired a media squad to basically follow me around and basically video shoot me all day long. So I thought about that and I said, you know what? I've already purchased the equipment. I mean, I got a whack load of equipment and I have people around me. Why not turn this into a business? Because, what am I going to do? What does my future hold? What do I want to do? What's next? Right. So part of the real estate idea was to build a team, and building the team will handle the sort of the buying and listing and all that stuff, where I can sort of work in the background on building the business rather than the real estate aspect. So I can sort of like be the face of the company. And that was my thought. So, and then I thought, okay, now I got this media squad, so I can help other realtors. So I started coaching a couple of, other realtors and stuff, and then teaching them about branding and getting themselves out there. And I said, you know what, I'm going to create a business with there. I've already have everything going. And then that's kind of how it started. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
really
so it was
good.
exciting. Yeah.
That's really exciting. You start off with a job and then turn it into a dream. It's wonderful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I guess having a podcast, I've been podcasting now for almost 3 years, and I've learned a lot along the way. But branding is probably something that a lot of podcasters don't think about. I mean, they've got their logo or they've got their podcast cover or whatever, but branding is not just about the logo. It's about your personality. It's about you as the host. So tell me a little bit about, and tell our audience a little bit about, how podcasters can better brand themselves.
Absolutely. And I agree with exactly everything you just said, where branding goes beyond the logo. Branding goes beyond the, your picture or your design or cover. Because really what branding is just a fancy word of saying reputation. So everything you do attributes to that brand. Like, brand is basically, how do you want to be seen? And you don't necessarily get to choose your brand, because just because you want someone to see you in a certain light, it doesn't mean they will. They're going to see you how they see you, and your actions will direct them in that way. So part of building that brand is having a clear message, having a clear direction. Like, if you want somebody, like, I'm going to use real estate again, just because I'm in that business. So if you want to be known as the number, like if, for example, one thing you might want to do is start off with what your area. Where do you want to start off with? Like, what's your niche? What makes you stand out over everybody else? And it's going to be more than a slogan, right? So, I mean, everyone's going to say, let's be honest, I'm in a business, but real estate is the business where everybody's number one. You have 1,000 agents and they're all number one somehow, right? So saying you're the number one realtor is moot. Where do you stand out? Now, we're going to say, for example, I'm in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So I work in a particular community called Oakville. So I can turn around and say, I am an award-winning realtor specializing in the Oakville area of Toronto. Right? So now I've created my niche and a farm area. So now everybody knows I'm working in that Oakville area. So right there. Now, what can I do to build that? I can build that podcast and use that podcast for education. If I use it by educating people on what's going on with the market, I use it on educating on tips and tricks. I can go beyond that by interviewing local businesses. By interviewing that local business, now I'm showcasing more than just real estate, but I'm showcasing that I'm not just part of the community, but I actually know the community. Right? Because there's too many people that are everything for everybody and they know everything. And the only way they're going to find their place is with Google. And if you need Google, then you don't know it. That's just really that simple. So now what you can do when you have all that content, the idea is, for example, we'll take when you interview a local business. It doesn't need to be more than a 30-minute podcast. 30-minute podcast is all you need. Now, from that 30-minute podcast, you should be able to take 4 to 6 1 to 2 minute clips out and chop them down that you can use them for Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn. And by that place, you have different clips everywhere. Like, you can have, like I said, one episode gives you 4 to 6. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you have one clip. Take Sundays a day off or do an extra clip somewhere. So now you have 6 days of content from that one 30-minute episode. Now, the idea is everyone's going to see you and you can link them to your show. And that long form show will be on YouTube and your audio platform. So if somebody is driving and they subscribe to the audio platform, they can play it through the car, through their phone, listen to it on the way to work. And that's the other reason why you want to keep it to 30 minutes. Because what's happening these days is people are using podcasts on the audio format as something to listen to instead of music for the drive to work. So now by keeping it in 30 minutes, average person drives between 20 to 30 minutes. And I know that, well, besides my own driving, I look at my stats and my average listen is 24 and a half minutes. Conveniently, that's usually the average drive to work. So kind of works that way. And again, 30 minutes, 6 clips. So now you're consistent. The key component of branding is being consistent. The idea is that if, again, using real estate is when people think of homes in Oakville, John Papaloni, he does that. His team does that. That's who I can call, because now they see me so often that I've built a name for that community. And because they see what I'm doing through education, I have demonstrated that I understand the market and I understand everything around it. I understand the community, I understand the product, and I understand the opportunities. And by demonstrating that, now I've built trust. So in a sense, I've become a mini celebrity in that community. And I become that person that they know, like, and trust. And they may have not necessarily met me before. And this is not an instant thing. This is why I said consistency. Before this really hits, it usually takes about 6 months. Now, I'll give you an example. I've been podcasting for 3.5 years now. And I've gotten to the point that I go to the grocery store and people approach me. And they recognize me. I've never met them. But they talk to me as if we're best friends, like they know me. And that's a good thing, because that means what I'm doing is working. So key component is consistency, and key component is the message. And again, you want to focus on a certain topic. Like, you don't want to be talking about marketing one day, real estate the other day, I don't know, languages another day, accounting the third day. When you're all over the place, there's no clear direction. Nobody knows what you do. It's all right for the people that you interview to be in different, industries, because you're displaying community. It's just that your focus should be primarily in the area and what you're an expert at.
Yes, I totally agree. I think that consistency is key. If you're going to release episodes, at least, you may not release them on the same day every week, but at least make sure that you do at least 2 podcasts a week, release 2 at least every week, so that people know that you're up and about. If you take a long break, people will forget about you. You've got to keep front of mind all the time.
Absolutely. Now, look, sometimes people think that's hard to do it. So I suggest maybe start once every 2 weeks to start off with. So you can always increase, you just can't decrease once you've increased. So if everyone knows every second Thursday you're on, never miss a beat. And once you get into a rhythm, you'll find it easy. Then you can add once a week, add twice a week. Again, remember, you can always add, you just can't take away. Because when people go, know you're there on Thursdays and they go to look on Thursday, you're not there anymore, they just think, you canceled it, and they won't come back.
Yeah. And most people don't know that 95% of podcasts don't last past the first 5 episodes. So, if you've only released 5 episodes and then you drop off the face of the planet for a week or 2, people will just think that you've given up because, you found it too hard, or, you weren't as dedicated as you thought you might be. Absolutely. Yeah, and branding, as you say, as we've both discussed, is that it's more than your podcast cover or your, but it's more about your personality and the way that you not only engage with your guests, but it's also the way that you engage with your audience. Whether you're present and staring down the camera lens and trying to engage your audience in some sort of conversation. I think that's important too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is the thing I want to bring up, right? Like right now, it looks like I'm staring at everybody. which reality is my screen is actually below me. So I don't actually see you because I'm looking at my camera lens, which is what's giving that appearance that I'm looking at you. Where, and that's a key component, right? Because when people, if I look down like this where I see you, then people are seeing the top of my forehead. And it kind of just seems like I'm not really focused or paying attention. When the reality is I'm looking at my screen, but it's not something people think about when they're watching. It just looks weird. So, but where I'm going with this is that, like you said, with personality, and that's the thing, people have to be able to connect with you. They want to see your authentic self. They want to see your true self. Like, be who you are. Don't try to be something you're not. Like, the worst thing you can do is have this online persona of somebody you're not, and then they meet you in person one day and they're like, who is this guy? Right? The idea is to build up trust and perception. Like, that perception you want is that, like, you want people to be able to have a vision of who you are, and then when they meet you in person, it should align, because the person they met in person was the same person on the podcast, right? Like, you should be prepared for an episode. Like, if you're sitting there with a document and you're reading and said, I went to the bank today to, like that sounds like robotic, and it's sort of almost like you don't know what you're talking about. Right. So you should know what you're talking about. And that's why it's important to be that authentic person, because if you're authentic, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to remember, because you're telling the truth. Right. It's the easiest way. Logos don't matter. Again, you want to be consistent, but it's more of that personality you bring. You want to have that liveliness. Like, you want to show people, like, even your guests, right? It's about taking interest in them. What are they interested in? What do you think will be of value to the audience? I mean, nobody wants to watch something where the person's going, I, me, all the way through the podcast. I mean, great. You want to be a fancy pants, buy a big billboard and say, I'm the greatest. There you go. You don't need a podcast for that.
No, you don't. No.
Right? It's about providing value.
I always make it a point to make my guests feel valued, and I make it a point to make the podcast about my guest, because really no one wants to listen to me babble on for 30 minutes about absolutely nothing. When I've got a guest, I shouldn't be on the screen most of the time, and my guest should be on the screen, 95% of the time. And I have been on podcasts where I got to say about 10 words, I think, and the host spoke the rest of the time. And I thought, why did you have me on in the first place?
I can understand that. I'm gonna tell you a bit of a story. My not my first podcast, but my second podcast. I had a colleague in my office who's become quite popular in the industry for podcasting. He was my very second guest, and I was very proud because he had already been doing it for a very long time. He had already built a name, and I was like, okay, well, I got a big name in our industry on my show. He's my very second episode. So excited. Then I went back to listen to it after. Boy, I was embarrassed because it seems like every question I asked him somehow became about me. The podcast was about him, but I made it about me more than him. Like, that was quite a learning lesson. Now, granted, that was my second podcast. Nobody's going to be perfect on the first time. And the importance is not to worry about the mistakes you made, but to learn from those mistakes so you don't repeat it.
Absolutely, yes. And podcasting, although it's not, rocket science, there is a science behind it, because you do need to obviously engage your guest, engage your audience, make sure the sound quality is good. People will forgive you your visuals. They don't care about your visuals. But if your sound is really bad, then you won't get repeat listeners. And that was something that I learned very early on, because some of the quality of the podcast wasn't great. And I soon picked up that I needed background noise cancelling and all sorts of other things, because even though Zoom is a wonderful tool and it does have a background canceller, it's still picked up, dogs barking outside or whatever. So I actually invested in some other cancelling platform just so that they couldn't hear the dog barking or the truck outside or the bus driving past or whatever. So, yeah. Because not all of us can afford a great big studio soundproofed, walls and ceilings, because, that tends to be quite expensive. And most of us just like to use our laptops or our desktop computers.
Absolutely. I agree with you on there. Again, the key thing is for people to get started. That's number one. Number two will be the sound over video, because people will look and watch a grainy video if they understand what you're saying, but they won't watch a video when you sound like you're mumbling all the way through because of noises and effects in the background. So again, if you have to invest in something, my key recommendation is to invest in a microphone first. Now, it doesn't have to be the fancy dancy Joe Rogan microphone that I have right here with all the boards and everything else that I have. Again, like I said, I have a media crew that follows me around, and clearly when I'm at home, I set it up for myself. So, but where I'm going with this is that you don't need that. You can go to a store and buy a $60 mic that will do the same job. It'll be good enough, and it is USB. It'll plug into your computer, and is better than just using your computer mic, because that's going to be very weak. It doesn't have to be expensive. You just have to have something that'll project your voice clearly.
Absolutely.
And that's really as simple as it is.
Man, it's just a bit of trial and error. I mean, tape yourself before you start your podcast. Make sure that your sound quality is good. Your lighting's good too. I mean, get a selfie light if your lighting in your room's not that great. Those sorts of things help. Good lighting is great if you're going to have a video. So there's a lot of techniques to use that don't cost the earth to start a podcast. And to help your business along, I think podcasting is absolutely a most brilliant way to do it, because you get known. People, and your brand is obviously visual, because you're putting your episodes out there, so your business has to pick up.
And that's the thing, right? It is, other than the initial investment of the $60 mic that I'm talking about, and having your laptop, which you can have anyways. If you have a business, you cannot not have a computer, right? So, you're going to have a computer regardless. And a $60 mic, and then you can sign up to using Anchor. Anchor is free. You don't need to have Podbean or Buzzsprout or any of the ones you pay for. Just use Anchor. It's free. There's your audio platform. You want to record the video? YouTube. That's free as well. Now, as you get more popular and you get more downloads and more listens, and you start doing what I said by clipping out 1 or 2 minute clips on Instagram, at that point in time, you can start interjecting some ad spend by pushing those video clips to more people. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money. Something as simple as $5 can reach like 1,500 people. And then out of that 1,500 people, you might get an extra 70 people clicking. And that could be a good way just to get the word around, because if people like it and they want to subscribe to it, they're going to come back, right? Like, generally people have their top 10 that they subscribe to, and they follow those each week. So the key thing is to remain interesting, remaining relevant, and remaining educational or entertaining, because those are the two ways that keep people there. As long as you're educational or entertaining, you'll have that audience, and more people will talk about it.
Absolutely.
And therefore you build up. Yeah.
And you can also, run your own ads, do a 30-second self-promo and insert that into your finished product. And, obviously, if people are interested, they'll click in the links in the bio. So it really, it's a no-brainer.
Exactly. I mean, the key thing, it goes back to being patient, because we're in an era where everybody wants to be like what I call Instagram, which is instant gratification, right? And they want everything now, which is why, like you said, people get 5 episodes in and then they're gone, because it is consistent work, and it is work, but it's fun work. And that's the thing. But you have to give it a chance to work. You're not going to publish 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 episodes and have 100,000 people listen to it. Look,
unless you're very lucky. I mean, there are people who have released their first or second episode and got heaps of downloads, but that's more luck than anything else. So don't expect that, as you said, in the first instance, because it does not happen.
Well, look, I'll give you an example, right? Like a lot of the things I've said today was trial and error myself. I started off with my podcast. I had the one show, and the one show I combined everything. And I started to realize when I did a self audit, I went to my YouTube channel and I looked and I'm like, one thing is real estate. Next thing I'm talking about entrepreneurship. Then I'm talking about how to market your business. Then I'm talking about how to use podcasts. And I'm so all over the place that if I didn't know what I was doing, I'd be confused. So it's like, that's when I separated. Now my real estate is on one podcast. Entrepreneurship and marketing is on another podcast. So I've separated them for that reason.
Absolutely.
And that goes back. Yeah, it goes back to what I said about niching down and knowing your audience. So now because of that, so here's where I'm going. My original podcast clearly has an audience if I'm 3.5 years in. But my new podcast obviously isn't going to have the same audience. Now I'm proud. I'm proud of my results. I mean, we're talking about, I'm about 2 months in. 2 months in, I'm over 1,000 downloads.
Well done. That's excellent.
Yeah, so I'm happy about that, considering it's the new one, and how do people know about it, right? So
I'm 2.5 years in. I've got 26,500. So, not a great amount, but it's a lot of hard work to get there, to make sure that that people are coming back to listen.
Exactly. But hey, you know what? You build and build and build, and the word gets around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. John, where can people find you if they want to know more about what you do, what you offer, and how you could help them?
Absolutely. You can find me on my website at papalonimedia.com. That's PAPALONIMEDIA.com. And all my social media handles will be there as well. So it's pretty easy that way.
Excellent. I really loved having you on today. Have you got any words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. My last words are going to go touch upon the consistency again. There's going to be many, many times where you just feel like giving up. And sometimes it's not even just on the podcast. Entrepreneurship is hard. It is time consuming, and sometimes it crosses into time schedules that makes you unhappy, like sometimes into family time. Now, the true test, and you got to remember your why. And as long as you remember your why, you started it for a reason. There was a reason you didn't go get a local job that paid 70 or 80 grand a year. You decided to take this route. Remember your why and keep going. And that consistency and the persistence, will take you there. I mean, the term is, if you've done something long enough, eventually you become the expert. And that applies in every way. And I mean, again, don't be closed-minded, be open-minded, because sometimes it's just a matter of pivoting to finding that magic formula.
Wise words indeed. Yes. Time and consistency is the key to any entrepreneurship, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, thank you so much for joining me today. I have really loved meeting you, and I hope you have a great evening.
You as well. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.